Welcome friends to another r/entitled parents video. If this video gets 1,000,000 likes, we'll begin rolling out the entitlement vaccine to all these parents. So make sure to contribute to a good cause and press the like button. And our first story of the day is by ULFR. I know who put glass in your ice cream, and it certainly wasn't the staff. Many years ago now, I had taken my friends out to dinner at a friendly sort of restaurant, if you catch my drift. They serve greasy American food and a whole bunch of ice cream. My friends were a couple with a baby, and we were all seated one table over from a group with a family that consisted of both parents, and I want to say 3 kids who were so off the wall, they seemed more like 5 kids and 1 infant. Clearly this family instilled discipline using loud volumes at home, which doesn't really work in a public setting like a restaurant. The kids were bloody obnoxious and very loud all throughout their meal, so the dad decrees that only the parents will be getting ice cream because they're the only ones who behaved. I will say in the parents' defense that they did try to keep control over their hellions. Lots of glares, promising this discussion isn't over. That particular parental tone one has when one would really love to yell, but can't because they're in public. And once the ice creams hit the fan, even those aren't coming close to restraining the kids any longer. They've taken their protest mobile, baby. Now they're running around the restaurant being a gigantic pain in the butt. One of them actually bumps the high chair my friend's infant was in, and Monkey, the baby, went from peacefully snoozing to furious at the whole world. At this point, the mother ups her game and starts whacking her glass sundae dish with her metal spoon to get the kids' attention, and using the bell-like tone to draw the kids' attention so they know what's coming if they don't get back and sit down. It works and the kids eventually come back, and the mom takes a bite of ice cream. Then she gets a look on her face like she went to fart, and got a surprise and claps both hands over her mouth and runs to the bathroom. She comes out a few minutes later and whispers to the father what happened, and at that point, the few frayed bits of control he had over his temper just dissolve. He starts screaming bloody murder about the restaurant, trying to kill the mother, how he's going to get this whole place shut down. The waitress comes over to see what exactly is going on, and she's blown aside and left sobbing in his dust. He's slowed briefly by the manager, and the guy homes in on the poor sap scooping ice cream. Grabs the front of his uniform and actually lifts him up off the floor with one hand, which I didn't actually think was a thing people could do. But the father was a large man and the poor kid scooping ice cream was rather scrawny. 2 other guys from the kitchen see what's happening and grab the father because, holy crap, this isn't a movie. They're at least successful in preventing the father from punching the poor kid, and the imminent violence ceases when the mother shouts, "I'm bleeding, we need to go." The father drops the kid, shakes off the 2 dudes who'd grabbed him, and the whole family skedaddles before the police arrive, promising to sue. The waitress, the manager, and the kitchen folks all have a brief huddle trying to figure out what the heck that was all about. The father was furious enough to sound incoherent, and no one knew why the mother was bleeding. The police arrive at the front of the restaurant, and the manager goes out to talk to them, while our poor waitress gathers what few shards of dignity she has and asks how we'd like to pay for our meal. I go hand her my debit card and say, "That was something else, huh?" I don't know how that guy didn't realize she was the one who broke her own dish and put glass in her ice cream. The waitress freezes when she hears this, my card in hand, and asks me to repeat myself. I do, and she zips over to the manager and cops who walk over to me. I relate everything I saw, and the manager thanks me to an uncomfortable extent and asks for contact information just in case they decide to sue. I get my card and the bill, and found out the manager had comped our entire meal and given us a free ice cream card to be redeemed whenever. I actually got a few phone calls about a year later from lawyers on both sides. The plaintiff's counsel sounded morose after hearing from me, and the defense's counsel sound positively gleeful. Ding ding ding. I like crunchy elements being in my ice cream, but I don't think I would be a very big fan if it was a glass shard. If you witnessed this whole thing and you knew why the mother was bleeding because they broke their glass, would you speak up to the manager and tell them, and would you be willing to testify if needed? Let me know in the comments down below. And our final story of the day is by The Staged Frog. Entitled mother demands that her entitled son gets to use my fishing set. Now, this was almost a decade ago, but I still amuse myself thinking back on it. My dad started his own personal business renting out canoes. kayaks, and boats for use on the nearby lakes, and the business is going really well. He quickly earned back the initial expenses, and all the money he earns now is pure income. This is basically his retirement plan. But because of his other job, he's out traveling from time to time and can't tend to his personal business, and so I sometimes have to step in and rent out boats and such in his place, which is no sweat on my part. My dad's offered me pay, but I've refused since he's my dad, and I'm not going to take pay to help him out when he needs it. I also get to use the available kayaks and boats as much as I want, so that's already more than enough payment. One day, when I had to step in for my dad and rent out 2 kayaks and a canoe to the family of 5, I had also planned to take a relaxing kayak trip myself and do some fishing by a waterfall. So I brought with me my fishing set and had placed it in the boathouse next to some other kayaks that was stored up on the wall. I arrived about 15 minutes before the family was supposed to arrive, so that I had time to prepare the things that they were gonna rent. After carrying everything down to the lake, I see the family arrive in their car and park on the wrong side next to the lake house. There's a large space designated for parking on the other side, but I didn't make a fuss about it yet since it's easier for them to transport their luggage where they place their car. But they obviously can't be parked there long term because it's blocking the driveway to the gate of the boathouse. I go up and greet them, and after some chatting, led them into the boathouse so they can sign the renting contract. After signing the contract is when things start turning sour. I start handing them the oars and give them a brief instruction on how to use them, but when I was about to distribute the life jackets, their son, who was around 8 I think, saw my fishing set and started expressing loudly to his mom that he wanted to fish. "Mom, I want to fish, can I fish?" while pointing at my fishing rod. She says, "Of course, honey, just bring it along when we go down." I was stunned for about a second there as I processed what just happened. I say, "Excuse me, but that fishing rod's not a rental, it's my personal fishing set." She says, "But why is it here then? It's in this boathouse and we just signed the contract." I can't believe the annoying voice that came out of her as she said this, but I tried to keep straight. "Ma'am, there's no mentioning of any fishing equipment in the contract. If you want to fish, you have to bring your own equipment." We did plan on maybe also renting out fishing equipment, but almost all who do have an interest in fishing already bring their own, so it's not something we bothered investing in. The kid screams out, "Mom, I want to fish!" My ears start hurting at this point. Entitled mother just looks at me and says, "My kid wants to fish and we did pay a lot to rent this," and then turns to the kid and tells him to go grab the fishing equipment. I was closer to it, so I managed to walk to it faster than the kid could, and I placed it on the kayak that was furthest up the wall, far out of reach of the kid. She says, "What are you doing? Let my son have the fishing rod." Entitled mother was furious. The kid starts sobbing and keeps saying he wants to fish. I say, "Listen, it's my fishing set and I was planning to fish myself after I was done dealing with you, but you know what? I can rent it out to you." Good fishing rods are in no way cheap, and with the box of fish lures as well, it gets really expensive quickly. So I offered them it for $20 a day, plus the cost of replacement if they lose or damage something. The rod itself was a $200 rod I got as a birthday gift from my grandpa, and the fish lures are around $7 to $9 each a piece. I probably had around 30 pieces in the box. Entitled mother was not happy to hear this. "There is no freaking way I'll pay that much for just a worthless fishing rod. This is the wrong woman to try to scam, young man. We already paid for this. We're taking the fishing rod. My son wants to freaking fish." I say, "Ma'am, there's a gas station just 15 minutes from here that sells fishing equipment. You can go buy a worthless fishing rod there with equipment so your son can fish as much as he wants." She says, "But we're already here. We're not driving away just for a lousy fishing rod. We want that one." I say, "Rent it or leave it." To my surprise, the entitled mother gave up, but I could tell on her expression she was furious, but the fun didn't end there. The kid, of course, kept on nagging entitled mother about wanting to fish, and could tell it just annoyed entitled mother even more. It astonished me that dad and the other kids, one younger and one older, were completely silent while this happened and just stood there. Now it finally came to the distribution of the life jackets, and I felt pretty annoyed and vindictive at this point, so I thought of just taking a petty revenge on the entitled mother. Entitled mother is a woman of a larger size, so when I held up the life jackets, I explained to everyone that it's important that these fit on your body really well, or they won't help much or can in fact aid them in drowning faster. So after explaining the importance of having well-fitting life jackets for their bodies, I turn to entitled mother and ask her straight out how heavy she is so I can pick out the best life jacket for her. Excuse me? How dare you ask a woman that? You're not supposed to ask a woman about her weight. You're such a pig. She also went on about how I was a misogynist and a sexist and all that. When she calmed down enough, I finally got a word in. Ma'am, is being a woman more important than your safety? She went silent, but you could see she tried to contain her anger. Her husband at this point looked embarrassed, as he kept just looking to the side. The youngest kid was on the verge of crying. Just give me a medium, she said. I just said okay and gave her a life jacket in large instead, and she put it on without checking. After further instructions on how to put it on, we finally got to get out of the boathouse and started going down to the lake, bringing along their luggage. When we had taken all the luggage in the canoe, I stopped the husband before he was getting in and asked him to move the car to the parking spots on the other side of the boathouse. He complied, but before he went, I did remind him to pay the parking fee, something that's very important for us because it helps pay for the tractor fuel and maintenance, which we need to clear away the snow during winter. We get a lot of snow. He nods, but this for some reason sets entitled mother off yet again. You want even more money? There are almost no cars there and we won't even be in the way for anyone, and you still want money for that, you greedy freak? I just stare in disbelief at entitled mother, but this time the husband has had enough and walked quickly over to her while she was still berating me and told her to stop. She started arguing with him, but only a few seconds after, the husband slaps her. I could swear the sound echoed and entitled mother just stood there with a huge shock on her face. The husband tells her to sit the freak down in the canoe and walks back up to deal with the car. Entitled mother sits down in the canoe and starts sobbing. The husband comes back and I help them out on the water since the water's a bit shallow where I placed the kayaks in the canoe. Everyone just remains silent except for the sobbing entitled mother. The youngest kid's also still on the verge of crying and I do feel bad for her. When they did get out a bit further on the water, I hear the kid again ask about fishing, but no one answered him. I go back up to the boathouse and end up just closing and locking it. I felt too drained to prepare my own kayak and go fishing, so I decided to get back home and just watch a movie. 3 days later, I had to go down to the lake again and take in the canoe and kayaks because the family was done with their trip. I didn't see much of entitled mother because she'd already gone to the car with the two youngest kids. I met the dad on the way up from the canoe with the last of the luggage, so I asked him how the trip went. The oldest kid was next to him and they both looked defeated and exhausted. Yeah, it was okay. The weather was really nice. He just ended it at that and continued carrying the last of the luggage to the car. So I figured they must have had some really unpleasant company with each other while on that trip. I started carrying the canoe up, and before I went down for the kayaks, I decided to toss a look out on the parking spots, and I see the husband and entitled mother argue, but I can't hear about what. They then drove away, and I carried the last of the kayaks and equipment up to the boathouse. I never saw them here again after that, and I haven't heard from my dad about renting to them either, but I'm happy if I don't have to deal with them again. This whole story is just kind of a buzzkill all around. Usually you like to hear some kind of like revenge or some kind of comeuppance come to the entitled mother or whatever, but not like that. And I think what's most devastating about this story is the fact that they're out there canoeing and kayaking on the lake and they're supposed to have this great time, but because of the circumstances, it's just fully awkward and weird and just has a terrible kind of aura around it. Like OP said, it was one of those things that was just so draining to witness and be around that they couldn't even have their own fun and go fishing. They just had to pack up and go home. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of these two stories that I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.